Looks like football, baby.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Football Smackdown. I'm your host, Jake Rip. You can find me on Twitter at JakeTakesFF. And joining me always, folks, you know him, you love him, you know where to find him on Twitter at KyleMonth8. But he's going to be on this show all year long, folks. Give it up for Kyle August.
Thank you.
Always so generous with the studio.
Dude, these, they're amazing. Every week, it doesn't matter what time we go live. We go live at a different time every single week, and they're always here ready to go. I was just laughing. If you're watching on YouTube, I was laughing ahead of time because we're in this age now. Everybody has to be on YouTube, right? You have to. And I always, the old joke, oh, face for radio and all that. But the reason I was laughing was because I remember back in the day before it was live and everyone saw, when it was just audio, I'd still have a video call going, or I've podcasted in person with people. And whenever someone else is doing the intro, I just sit there and try to mess them up, give them the bird and, things that probably shouldn't go on YouTube. So every time you host, I just, in my head, I'm like, don't be a dick,
You can't screw. You know what? I screwed up the intro the other day, and I got real mad at myself. And since then, I've really tried to buckle down and not mess up the Kyle Month 8 tagline. You know what I was thinking though? With we're giving out Twitter handles, dude. I got to step up my freaking Twitter game. I checked it out the other day. I haven't even been on there, and who knows how long. I think my last tweet was in February or something. It's shameful.
I posted something today, and I was that I came across super fast, and it was actually fantasy relevant. And and I was like, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, I've got to put some nuggets out there for the people. I probably lost my share of followers this year because I've been just tweeting too much NASCAR shit. But
my last tweet, I just traced it back here to the end of May. So I'm nothing for June. I'm not doing a good job, by the way, of selling my Twitter handle.
No.
It was this was a solid tweet back in May. I quote tweeted CBS Sports headquarters, and they said, which NFL throwback logo would you like to bring back? And it showed all the throwback logos and all those sweet ones that we all know and love. And the one of the Bengals was so funny to me because he looks just like Chester Cheeto, literally, it's exactly like that same cartoony thing. So I just quote tweeted it, put LOL Bengals, and I got a GIF of Chester Cheeto. He's sprinkling Cheetos down on the ground, and that got zero likes and 0 retweets and 0 comments.
I definitely saw it. Apparently I didn't give it the old heart, but
no, you know what? I respect your honesty and knowing that you're not too biased. You can at least recognize a bad tweet and keep scrolling. I'm not gonna like this just because it's Jake's.
Dude, honestly, half my stuff is just quote tweets. Cool quip. If you listen to mention that. If you listen to last Friday on the Warzone feed, I was hanging out with Memphis, and he dropped a cool quip. Jake Rip, mentioned on there. But anyway,
I enjoyed your appearance on the Warzone this week. Fantastic episode, but super funny. Memphis says I put too much emphasis on the H, but here's the thing that he's getting wrong: is there is 0 emphasis on the H. It is just Rip. You just pretend it isn't even there. It's there for show. It's there to pretty up the last name.
Yeah.
Look, I didn't come up with it. I was born with it, but that's what I'm rolling with. But if you want to, we can go with Jake Whip.
I'm pretty sure the first time I ever did a show with you, I that was the first thing I made sure to ask you. I'm like, I gotta make, because I heard you on other shows, and I was like, I'm pretty sure they're not pronouncing that H in there. And I'm the worst with freaking names, bro. Thank God my last name is August. Otherwise I'd probably screw that up too. But I'm the worst with freaking names. So Memphis always drops that. It's always a good time. And if you missed that episode, it dropped last Friday. We recorded it a little earlier in the week, but we just talked about and it's a great topic for our listeners here, but we just talked about just the redraft and a transition to dynasty and things to look out for. And we also covered a few other nuggets in there. So definitely go back and check that one out. But yeah, I got to step up the Twitter game. I'll be dropping some stuff on here. I'm working through some rankings and some things. So going to be plenty of good things over on Twitter at Kyle Month 8. So give me a follow. We'll interact on there. I love hearing from you guys. And yeah, man, it's a good time. Just a slow time of year, for the news and stuff. So it's kind of like you're just hanging.
It is a slow time of year for news. And man, I really wanted to transition into some news right there. But I got a little PSA announcement I want to drop real quick right here. Ladies and gentlemen, your weekly reminder that we do stream the Fantasy Football Smackdown live to YouTube every single Monday night. You can watch us live, record every single show, including this one in real time. You can see Kyle's sweet jazz hands over there, my graphic tee of the week. You could be in for something really sweet this week. Actually, you can't see it on YouTube, but take my word for it. I came into the studio here, if you will, and the arm for the microphone here had completely taken a spill. It fell through the hole I have in the desk. It's this whole terrible setup. But right now I have it propped up with a book and a fork. Now, it's a bad setup to begin with, but on top of that, I have this gnat that keeps flying around. You might see it every once in a while on camera here, but I'm swinging at this gnat, and I know exactly how this is going to end, and it's not going to be pretty, and the microphone's going to be on the floor by the end of the show. But anyways, if you're on YouTube, you can catch all that happen instead of listening to it on the podcast.
You want to get people over to at Jake Takes FF on Twitter. You got to post a picture of your mic setup at least, because we can't see it as far as the fork in the book. But I think you got to take a photo, post that over there. I got a like with your name on it if I see it.
All right. I like that. That better be a promise. I will take that picture and I will make sure to tweet it. Hell, you guys you tweet us live during the show, and you might just become part of the show if you're if whatever you have to say is compelling enough, or if one of the two of us decides to zone out in the middle of the show. Kyle, is that the right way? No, this way, Kyle.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
And then it might just get to you. But anyways, subscribe to the DWZ YouTube channel. Join us for the best discussion in fantasy football every single Monday night. And perhaps this would be a good time to mention that we're also going to be on the DWZ show tomorrow, right, Kyle?
We're recording tomorrow. I don't know if Memphis is going to let us on the Mothership Wednesday show, or if he's going to put us on, in AAA on for Friday, because that's what he did with me last week. So we'll see, but we'll definitely be on the feed later this week with a mock draft, sounding like it's going to be with Memphis and Jerry, which the man power. Yeah. So looking forward to that. It's like a freaking eclipse anytime I'm on a show with Jerry. So he's a hard man to pin down, but I'm sure he gets that all the time.
And I was listening back to your episode with Memphis, and one of you guys I think it was Memphis, said something about like it's kind of like the end of dynasty season. I thought about it. I was like, I guess it kind of is. Like now I'm sort of locking into a redraft mindset. Is there like a specific turning point you think in the calendar where it's like, I mean, you never really fully shut it off, right? You're always kind of messing around with your dynasty teams. They don't go anywhere during the regular season. But is there some point in the calendar year where you flip it over and you're like, all right, I want my 2021 guys. I'm not afraid to draft 30-year-olds anymore. Let's roll.
Yeah, I mean, generally my focus, it's around this time. Usually July, like after July 4th is the real kickoff generally for me. Like I'm usually, looking at seasonal stuff a little bit through June, but then in July, it's like, all right, my focus is here. And it doesn't mean there won't be more startups or other dynasty related happenings, but I think Memphis's point for sure is, and I keep it now in the back of my mind, is like, if you didn't make a major move 2 months ago, why are you making it now? Like, what has changed? Like, we had a lot of things happen earlier this year. You always have free agency and cuts and the draft and moving in there and picking what direction you want to aim. But if you weren't a contender, 2 months ago after going through all that, why are you a contender now? Why would you be making major moves? So it doesn't mean you can't be on the lookout, try to take advantage of somebody else, not knowing the value of players here in the middle of the year. But yeah, man, it's definitely one of those things where it's just like, hey, you kind of made your bed, hopefully did it with purpose. And now you kind of just wait it out a bit and see, because once the season starts rolling, that'll be the true tell on whether you're competing this year or not.
You have any crazy redraft leagues that you get into every year that draft like, I don't know, around this time of year or in July, like something, I don't know. I would call this absurdly early. It's still a super scary time, a lot of unknown in the NFL, but do you have any leagues like that? Or are you predominantly, are they all kind of wait until, what is that, Labor Day weekend, right before kickoff?
Yeah, generally I mean, I'm trying to think of how many leagues I'm even in that are redrafted I don't run myself, and I would never let a league draft before mid-August. So I generally am trying to wait as long as possible. I got some leagues where we definitely stress like, hey, we want to all get together. So those make it a little bit harder. We've had years where it's like, hey, we'll have to do it like early August. But for redraft, man, I try to get as much information as possible. I guess there's only 3 preseason games this year, so that'll kind of change it up just a bit, but the season still starts at the same time. So yeah, the sweet spot is generally the weekend before Labor Day, and get all those teams set. And if, maybe even the week of, right before kickoff, but try to squeeze every last one we can. And we'll see how many we end up with this year.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm going to have way too much fun when the calendar turns into August and I'm sitting here with Kyle August. You're going to get so sick of me. It's going to be like me listening to Jake from State Farm jokes for the past decade. You're gonna have to pay for like a month and just feel a little bit of my pain.
I can't even imagine because honestly, like I don't even know if I've ever even said that to you, but I have another good friend named Jake as well, and every time I say his name or think about him, freaking State Farm is just drilled in my head, and I'm like, those bastards. Like, I don't want that to be what I think about, but unfortunately, those are the cards you were dealt, my friend. So we'll keep those. We'll leave that to the television, but I don't envy you.
No, we'll stick with Jake.
Yes,
such a bad Stewie impression. Let's keep it rolling. On today's show, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna talk about how we approach the quarterback position in both 1 quarterback and 2 quarterback super flex formats. Before we get into all that good stuff, again, we're going to take advantage of any sort of news or any sort of blurbs we can get out of minicamp, any updates that we're graced with here at the end of June. But this one stood out to me, and maybe it's just, I don't know if confirmation bias is the right word, but I definitely like what I'm hearing here. ESPN's Nick Wagner believes that Trey Sermon, quote, looks poised to make an impact as a rookie. Now, again, Kyle, we always take these headlines with a grain of salt, right? When they're coming from a reporter. You and I talked about that a week or 2 ago. But if anything, the headline does make me kind of like direct my attention and focus a little bit on that San Francisco backfield situation and what it might look like this season, because they've been sort of off my radar, but it's a team and an offense that runs the ball a ton. Jeff Wilson, I don't know what the exact injury is. He's some sort of knee injury, but he's out 4 to 6 months or something, right? He's not going to be a factor. You know what it is with his knee?
I don't remember the exact injury, but I know that he's definitely starting on the pup, and I would be surprised if he makes much of an impact this year at all. And that's originally was when Sermon went there. I was like, hey, all aboard for Dynasty. These guys like Wilson, I believe, is on an expiring contract. Mostert is for sure. He's a little bit older as well. While he kind of came on late, like he's still up there. He's 29, I believe. They signed Wayne Gallman, this offseason, if be for him. But like when Sermon landed where he did, draft capital wise for a running back, I thought was solid. The landing spot's great, always good, no matter what running back's back there. I was like, oh, this is gonna be great for Dynasty, but I'm not buying it for 2021. But after Wilson went down, it's like just one less body for him to jump. And as much as I do like Raheem Mostert, and he's probably going to be at a decent value, I'm treating this situation.
I'm sorry to cut you off. It's like it seems like there's such a clear path to playing time. It's those kind of things that, it's what, what's had my mind around Michael Carter for the past couple months. It's like, oh, he's going to be one of those buried running back values who's going to end up getting all this volume. And maybe Trey Sermon's that guy in San Francisco.
Yeah, I think he could be. And the best part is his price, while it could go up as we get more hype pieces like this, I think it's going to be very, very reasonable. When you look at the Denver Broncos backfield as like in a comparison, you're going to have to spend a decent pick on either one of those guys, right? Mostert's going to be a mid-round pick, and I think that's perfectly fine. If he's taken anywhere from 24th to 30th among running backs, that's great. Smash that. I'm good to go. But if you can get Sermon then in rounds 9+, I think that's phenomenal. I think, like I said, in comparison with the Denver, both those guys are going to go in the first 6 rounds. And that's just a mess versus with San Francisco. I think you can take both those guys. They're going to have their moments. But I think Sermon, with Mostert's injury history, he's gonna find the field for sure. Any running back, I think, is a candidate to find the field at any point due to injuries. But I think especially in San Fran, they've used multiple guys in the past, and this is a great offense to have a piece of that backfield. So Sermon's going to be a guy I look to target as far as these more like under the radar, I guess, rookie running backs. Not the Najee or even Michael Carter. Like I think he's going to be even a little bit deeper in ADP.
Yeah, I think I saw something came out like a testament to Trey Sermon's pass catching. I hope I'm not getting him mixed up with someone else, but I swear something about that came out in minicamp. But that stands out to me because I'm not to shit on Raheem Mostert because he's been awesome, right, in the context of the San Francisco offense and Kyle Shanahan's system. But then it's always, now that question looms around in your head, like how much of that is just because it's the Kyle Shanahan system? Like Raheem Mostert, he's not a special talent to me. Like he didn't have a fantasy relevant season until he was 27 years old. Like you say, he's 29 now. I'm not gonna pretend to understand the X's and O's that allow the running backs to excel in this offense, but Shanahan's got the track record. Devonta Freeman, Mostert, even a nobody like Jeff Wilson. Sorry, Jeff, if you're listening, buddy, get better soon. But he's had monster games in that offense. So like you said, it just seems like with him out of there as one less body to jump. I think if Sermon sees the field, that's all he needs is the opportunity, and then the talent's going to take him the rest of the way. I think that he's, and again, I'm not a tape grinder or anything. I can't like go back to all these great, I can't reference all his play at Ohio State or anything, but if it's him versus Raheem Mostert, man, I like his odds coming in as the hot young talent here, and I hope I'm not reading too much into that narrative, but I think there's real chance here for Trey Sermon to pop, especially if Trey Lance gets in there and he's something and he can keep that offense moving the chains. Then Trey Sermon can be a sneaky pick, I think, at the end of drafts.
Yeah, and I think the way what you want to leverage would not, and I'm not either. Like I'm not watching these guys coming out or whatever. I don't have time for that. Most people don't. But like look at the draft capital they spent on him. That'll tell you what they think of Trey Sermon, that they valued him enough to spend that pick to get him on their team, knowing that, at the time, they had 2 veteran guys they trusted last year, brought in Wayne Gallman in free agency. It wasn't necessarily a dire need for them. They've found guys before, but for them to spend the draft capital on him, if he stays in the double-digit rounds, I'm loving his redraft value even heading into 2021. He's not, you're not paying that Javonte Williams price tag for a guy, to go, to fall into a great situation. I think Sermon's a guy that fantasy owners should be targeting, and definitely worth a flyer even in round 9. I would say. I don't know where his ADP is. I'll see if I can look that up real quick as we're on here, but definitely an intriguing guy.
Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of like doubling up on running backs. Like if we were going to do Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, that's a bad example because that wouldn't be the worst pair to have on your team. But Raheem Mostert and Trey Sermon, like you said, their ADPs are going to be kind of buried. So that wouldn't be a bad 1-2 punch, I think, to have on your team. Not as like your primary top 2 running backs, but you have both those guys on your bench, and God forbid something happens to Raheem Mostert early in the season, you got yourself a potential league winner in Trey Sermon, or maybe vice versa. If Trey Sermon isn't what I think that he might be, and Raheem Mostert just goes ballistic like we've seen him do before, you get a great value in him. Either way, just both of them scream value to me.
Yeah, right now, and just for reference, and we'll see how this shakes out as we get closer and closer, but redraft ADP right now over at Sleeper, Mostert's going around, he's at his ADP is 69th overall. Nice. Javonte Williams is right after that at 75 overall, but then Sermon is at 111 overall. So, I mean, that's a pretty big gap when you're talking about Williams and Sermon. I know Williams carries a little bit more draft capital, maybe a clearer path to playing time, but I would argue maybe not. I think I'll take Sermon 30 picks later than, spending on Williams and maybe needing to wait on that to come around. Not that Williams' value is bad, because I do think that's where he's going is where he should go. But man, I think Sermon, though, will be a guy that kind of creeps up a bit. Right now, he's going behind Kenyon Drake, both the Cardinals guys right now, Ronald Jones, Michael Carter. He's right. Damian Harris is going one spot ahead of him. Like, I think there's a few names that he could jump when we get to draft season.
All right, that's enough running back talk for this show. I told you we were going to talk quarterbacks, and I meant it, but we're going to stick with some news here. I thought this one was a little juicy. ESPN's Cameron Wolf reporting the Dolphins are prioritizing downfield passing aggressiveness in off-season practices. I read that in my first thought, like, you think they're going to prioritize downfield passing aggressiveness, not passive aggressiveness, passing aggressiveness. They went out, they signed Will Fuller. They drafted Jalen Waddle with a 6th overall pick in the draft. If they don't plan on pushing the ball down the field, then I have some serious questions for whoever's pulling the strings in that organization, because their offseason moves would seem very sketchy at that point. But regardless, man, I'm getting really excited about Tua Tagovailoa this season. He's another one of those guys that I feel like no one wants to give him any respect. Like, he came out and was fine, right? Like, he didn't completely implode on the field, but he wasn't putting up incredible Justin Herbert numbers. He kind of just flew under the radar after all this hype. People were debating the best quarterback in that class. Is it Joe Burrow or is it Tua Tagovailoa? So when Joe Burrow goes out there, does his thing, and then Tua's kind of so-so, I don't know. I guess that buries his ADP. But the guy had no weapons. He got a late start to the season. And I don't know. I think that all changes this year. He comes into it fully prepared. He has 2 crazy downfield threats. And I'm not going to act like Devontae Parker isn't nothing. It's just it's not the best situation to have Devontae Parker as your primary only one. I won't even not the number one, the only one in that offense. Tack on Gesicki there, and it looks good in Miami. What do you think about that offense as a whole and Tua Tagovailoa? Because I had Tua as my QB 21 in our old rankings. I actually went back and updated those before our show, and I bumped them up to QB 17. I think I'm a little more comfortable with there.
Yeah, I mean, I like Tua as a very cheap, attainable option, even in super flex leagues. I think he's going to be somebody that, again, people are down on after one season of having no weapons and a lot of other factors going on in his, that led to, what we saw from him last year. Now, with Fitzpatrick not in Miami anymore, I think that safety net's gone. I think it's going to be Tua's team. He's going to be given the shot to sink or swim. And like you said, they've spent a lot of their offseason adding weapons around him, which you love to see. That was kind of the reason that, it was so frustrating waiting on Sam Darnold. And, for that brief moment that we all thought Dwayne Haskins might be even fantasy relevant at any time. Like, those teams did nothing. They literally were like, you know what, we'll even get rid of some players so that you have even less to build around. They've loaded this offense up, and I don't know why. I keep forgetting that Will Fuller's on this team. I don't know why. He's suspended 1 game. That's it. And he has shown to be, a valuable weapon when he's on the field.
I mean, he was one of the best receivers in fantasy football for like a stint a reasonable stint last year, right?
Yeah, and it was definitely, and those were numbers that, it's still tough for me to trust any of these guys for fantasy in the Miami offense as far as the receivers go. But that, put together, I think it could help Tua out quite a bit. So I have him right now as my QB 26. I have him behind some names that I'm not going to be surprised if he jumps. It's just, I think as far as the upside goes, I don't think he has, from what I've seen, I don't think he has that top 12 upside, but I do think he can be a top 24 guy, somebody that is turns into an every week starter. But the best part, like I said, is that you don't have to draft him as that. You can take him as, your 3rd QB in a super flex. I think he's going to be available in that range, and there's some upside there because there's a little bit of just unknown.
Man, I before the show, I thought about downloading a booing sound effect. I was inspired. Memphis had his sound effect board was off the charts on the last episode. I'm sitting here with just an applause and one of these.
Yeah, we got to work on that. We got to get things tuned up here for the season.
But I wanted to boo you so hard right there. What'd you say? QB 26? Get out of here, man.
26, man.
Just on playmakers alone, this guy's gonna chuck the ball down the field, and he might be having a so-so game, and then all of a sudden it's gonna be like boom, 70 more passing yards and a touchdown. Thank you, Will Fuller. The same thing on the next drive from Jalen Waddle.
We'll see. My biggest concern, I guess, with Tua is not as much like that he can't take the next step. Is that how much do they need him to take that next step? Like, I think he can be much more efficient, have and put together great NFL games, and they can leverage the fact that defense is solid. 2 years ago, that offseason, my God, they couldn't have spent more money on that defense. And it showed. I mean, they have a really, really good all-around team. They're going to be a contender. I don't think that they're going to be like, some of these other squads that are going to need their quarterback to go out and win them games. So that's just the only hesitation I really have with Tua right now. If he had a worse defense, then I'd probably be further up in my ranks, to be honest.
Okay, Kyle, here's the big one. Aaron Rodgers could save $18.3 million in unearned signing bonus money and roster bonus money if he opts out of the 2021 season by July 2nd. That's an interesting development in the Aaron Rodgers 2021 offseason story, the offseason saga.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think are the odds that actually happens and that he tells him he's not going to play?
0.0. Is that
0.0?
Yeah.
Even like 0.5?
No, I think that. Well, I mean, obviously we'll see how this plays out, but the longer it goes, I just think that it's less and less of a chance that he's somewhere else or that he sits out. I mean, he'll be there. They'll figure it out. He won't be happy about it.
I feel like that relationship has to just be like deteriorating.
Oh, 100%.
From whatever's still remaining. I don't know, man. Like, I guess I felt this way. I reference this way too much, and it's a little bit irrelevant. But the whole Le'Veon Bell thing, like, I remember like going through that whole process in super denial. I was just like, he's gonna play. Why wouldn't he play? It didn't make any sense. And I can't make any sense of this Aaron Rodgers character. I don't know. I can't get a read on him, man. I never could. I always thought he was kind of a little bit of a weirdo, and then recently he's kind of grown on me. I watched the Jeopardy thing, and I thought he was kind of funny. I'm like, all right, this guy's got a sense of humor. I can get behind him. Yeah. But so you're saying you're not buying it one freaking bit.
I think if he, I think that it's, like I said, the further and further it goes, the less likely he's going to end up somewhere else. The dude's 38, like, time's a ticking, bro. And this is a good team. Like, this is a really good Packers squad. Like,
I'd argue he could go win a Super Bowl this year with Denver.
I don't know about that. I think he can win a Super Bowl in Green Bay. He can just stay there, So I think things will eventually get worked out there. Am I putting money on it? Probably not. But because why would I? If I don't have to, why would I? But no, man, I'm treating Rodgers right now like he's just going to be there. They will be pissed off at each other all year. They've probably been that way for 2 years, and he's got it done. He's just, whatever. And I think he'll just show that, man, he's still, he's a damn good quarterback. And then, that'll be that. So I think this is probably the last year in Green Bay, but I think he's still there.
Such a dysfunctional relationship. I'm curious though, even though I want to see you at least entertain the hypothetical. What would you do with Jordan Love if he's the guy this year? I don't even know I guess he's been getting the reps in practice with the first team, but where would Jordan Love fall in your rankings? Like dead 32, 33?
30 probably, I guess. He's in that San Fran, Denver mess. New England, like I don't care. I don't want him. He can hit, that's great, but like,
and that being said, Devontae Adams would also plummet.
Yeah, Adams would probably end up off the top of my head, wide receiver 2 range, like probably high end wide receiver 2 still. He's a monster.
You meant like the wide receiver 2.
Oh, no. 13 to 15 ish. I don't know. Like
wide receiver 2, you buried him.
Would love. You haven't seen him at all. And so I think, and in the limited times we have seen the Packers team without Rodgers, my God, like this offense needs him. Like when I say this is a good team, this is a good defense, and it's an offense that is awesome with Aaron Rodgers. This is not a team where you can just plug somebody in and off they go. This is a team that needs to leverage Aaron Rodgers, and that's why I think this will eventually work out, because they'll do something to make Aaron happy enough, because what else are you going to do? You can't win with Jordan Love. I mean, I think if Jordan Love is the quarterback, the division's in play, for Minnesota. The division's in play for Chicago, right out the gate. So you need Rodgers there.
All right, that's all I got for news. That's probably going to be it for news until training camp gets really kicking here. But
Yeah.
let's get into some quarterback draft strategy. Kyle, what can you tell me about how you?
Oh, I think you're muted, bro. You just it says you're muted on here, and I can't hear you. This is week 2 of Jake coming in with technical difficulties. So I'll take the question here and give him a minute to get this figured out. One quarterback leagues. My strategy, man, is it's the same every single year, but I'll kind of put it in the context for 2021.
Can you hear me?
Back? Yeah, I got you now.
No?
I hear you. I hear you. So, one quarterback leagues, I'm waiting on quarterback, man. You're not going to draft any of these guys early. Right now, the top 12 quarterbacks all have an ADP inside around 8. And there's value still to be had. Are you with me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Jake? This isn't being edited out, so you better do something. Anyway, I'll keep rolling here, and then we'll get Jake back on here in a moment. But anyway, so one QB leagues, I'm waiting on the quarterbacks. You can definitely find value outside the top 12 this year, just like any other year. You can just wait on that position. Right now, guys, outside the top 12 in ADP, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Ben Roethlisberger, all guys you can find in your leagues right now outside of that top 12 in ADP. So those are guys that I'm going to try to target to start my season with, and then see if they hit. If not, then I'm streaming. So what's up, man? You with us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
My microphone, you can't, huh?
I mean, I can hear you right now.
Oh boy, we might be doing this no headphone style. Hold on 1 minute here.
You're gonna force me to edit this. This is getting good. So we'll give Jake a minute. It's live television, folks.
Oh, how about now?
You got it. Check. Yep.
Check.
Oh man.
Oh, we rolling now?
I'm gonna send you an invoice for my editing time because I probably have to edit that now.
I have no idea what happened there. I don't even have a guess. It was just all of a sudden the mic disappeared. I couldn't hear you.
Good times. That's 2 weeks in a row. So you better get your act together.
What are the odds of that, man? I don't even know where we were at in the show or what we were talking about. I think I was going to flip it over to you. I wanted to know your quarterback draft strategy. We've talked plenty of times on this show, so I know that if we're talking one quarterback leagues, you're waiting until the end of the draft to pick your guy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I'll probably just restate it again for you and the listeners because I'll probably just cut out that middle part. But yeah, man, it's definitely wait. I know that the names are intriguing, and when you're sitting there, even around 7 and 8, you're like, oh man, Aaron Rodgers still here, or Justin Herbert's still here. Like you're not, what you have to give up at another position is not worth the trade-off, because the thing to remember is when you're sitting there late in the draft, if you're like, oh, I need to add another receiver running back here, the names are just horrible. But when you're looking at it and you're like, oh, I can just pick up Joe Burrow with my last pick, or Ben Roethlisberger, or Kirk Cousins. While those guys aren't as sexy as some of the other names that are there, the value that you're going to get at other positions in those middle rounds is not worth giving up. So in one QB leagues especially, I'm not taking any quarterback in the first 9 rounds. I mean, if that. I'll generally try to wait till one of my later picks, try to get a feel for the room. If it's me and a couple other guys that are doing this strategy, then I'm watching that draft board, man. Try to see like, hey, okay, none of them are behind me on this turn. I can pass on QB one more time and catch it before it gets back to those guys. Or obviously the flip, if you're sitting there and there's 2 guys behind you that haven't taken a quarterback yet, and there's just one you really, really like in round 11 or 12, I don't have any problem, just reaching in a sense to just go get those guys. So quarterback is definitely a position where I'm waiting, and I'm also monitoring the rest of my draft mates to see who else has a QB and who needs one.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly when you're like, you got to read the room. And there's actually a note here I made to myself, like in one quarterback leagues, I'm waiting on quarterback 100% of the time, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Like I can't even think of a scenario where I would reach out there. Like the value could never be good enough for a quarterback to slip. Like, I'm looking at Mahomes. If Patrick Mahomes is available in the 10th round, I know this is a crazy scenario I'm throwing out there, but that just means that Dak Prescott's available in the 11th round. You know what I'm saying? Like, Excuse me. You have to edit that one out too.
No chance.
But as far as reading the room, like when you're playing with more, I've noticed, at least what I've noticed is when you're playing with more experienced guys or like industry guys, they tend to want to wipe out the quarterback population by the first like 2 to 3 rounds. Like the first draft that I did, I still remember actually it might have been my first dynasty league draft, a super flex draft. I went into it. I think I had the first pick, and I was like, okay, can't screw it up. Christian McCaffrey, got it. And then after that, the tsunami wave of quarterbacks that went just ripping off every single quarterback for like the whole way, snake back to me. And my draft strategy, even back then, is kind of like, okay, well then, you're going to take the quarterbacks. I'm going to take advantage of those skill players that you're missing out on. Take a couple skill players. By the time it gets back to me, there's no one left. This would have been, I'm trying to think if this would have been last year or 2 years ago, but two years ago, I got Jameis Winston and Drew Brees were my quarterbacks. And you see how that played out, obviously. At the same time, though, if you're not playing with more experience or industry guys, or it doesn't even matter, I guess, like how long you've been playing or skill level, it's just, kind of a tendency thing. But I'll play in leagues where just a few quarterbacks will go in the first round, even if I'm playing in a 2 quarterback or super flex league. It'll just be running back, and then a few quarterbacks sprinkled in. And then in those leagues, I'm much more willing to take more of that 1 quarterback league approach and try to capitalize on some of that late round quarterback value that is to be had at the end of the draft. I'm curious, Kyle, another note I made here. I'm wondering how much more you would prioritize the position in a 6 points per passing touchdown league. And I'll make that a 2-part question. You play in any of those leagues?
Yeah. I don't, obviously one thing that I do before every single draft, because there's just, too many damn leagues. I can't keep rules straight. One thing you should always do before every single draft, take a look at the rules, just double check, make sure there's nothing quirky in there. As far as if it's 4 point or 6 point, I don't really care. I'll kind of give a boost to the statue type quarterbacks like Matt Ryan or Ben Roethlisberger in redraft leagues, like, Matthew Stafford, like those guys, if it's 4 points per passing touchdown, but then rushing is even more valuable, then I'm definitely going to look for those rushing quarterbacks if I can get one. If it's 6 point, and it's all the same, then I'm not opposed to taking some of the guys that aren't going to give me much rushing production. It's going to balance out a little bit more because they're going to have more passing touchdowns. So that's really the only thing. It doesn't really change my strategy though when you compare the quarterback to other positions. If it's super flex, I'm obviously going to value quarterbacks more overall. So yeah, maybe I give a little bit of an extra edge to the QB in that slot versus, I almost downgrade them in 4 point per passing touchdown. I feel like just because I feel like I can find guys late, but exactly. I note it just, ahead of time to see if that's, if I'm on the fence about, whether it's 2 quarterbacks, that I like, hey, it's 6 point here. So maybe I'm going to lean towards Stafford over, Hurts, in this scenario versus in a 4 point, maybe I do lean Hurts just shooting for the upside there or whatever. So I pretty much just make a mental note. And if I'm looking for a tiebreaker, I'll use that.
This isn't a trick question or anything. I'm just genuinely curious. Would you put Pat Mahomes in his own tier at quarterback?
Yeah, I do. Just because as much as I like Josh Allen, what he did last year, and I love Dak Prescott, obviously, and Murray has some extreme upside with that rushing if he continues what he did that first, 10 games. I think like there's still a little bit of, is this guy for sure the QB2, right? Versus I think Mahomes is like, he is locked in. He is going to be a top 3 quarterback no matter what. There's just no other outcome, I think, for him outside of him just getting injured, which could happen to anybody. So, he has 2 elite weapons. He has the best coach in the NFL, and he's the most talented quarterback in the league. You don't have to overthink it. He's QB1. So yeah, and Superflex, especially like when I'm actually caring about those quarterback tiers, yeah, he is in his own tier, and he's a guy that, if he's there in the first round, I'm taking him. He's for sure the QB1.
Yeah, I definitely won't argue him being the QB1, but when I was kind of like thinking this question up in my head, I'm like, I don't know how I would exactly like when I set up tier breaks. It's almost like I'm doing a poor job of explaining this. I guess here, let me try to take a different route here. I feel like any one of the first 12 or 13 quarterbacks in current ADP, like you look up current Fantasy Pros ADP, could legitimately finish as the QB1 this season. Now, obviously, like you said, Mahomes, he has that floor where he's, as long as he's healthy, he's finishing in the top 3, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're talking about the guys who could finish as the best quarterback in fantasy football this season, why not Dak Prescott? Why not Justin Herbert? Why not Ryan Tannehill? What's stopping Ryan Tannehill from being the QB1 in fantasy football? That's going to sound outrageous, but here's Ryan Tannehill with Julio Jones and AJ Brown locked and loaded in this offense, and defense is not able to. You got to pay attention to the big man in the backfield. I'm not going to go crazy here and go on a Tennessee Titans tangent, but that's my point. Like, I don't. It's hard for me to just say like Mahomes is here, because then I feel like now there almost is like an obligation to reach for him a little earlier, like, because there's that tier break right there. It's like when you have Travis Kelce in his own tier, it's like, okay, that makes it justifiable to take Travis Kelce at the end of the first round. I feel like I'm not relaying this exactly how I wanted to, but
no, I think I get what you're saying, and I guess from my standpoint, when I'm in a 1 QB league, it's like my first tier is I'm not paying the price tier, and it's just literally a big chunk of 8 to 10 guys where I'm just like, not gonna own them, just won't own them, like, can't do it. So not gonna pay the price that someone else is willing to go for. At least one other person in my league is going to reach for Justin Herbert or reach for Aaron Rodgers. I will sit back and let that play out. And Superflex is really where it becomes more relevant. Then I start really paying attention to how far apart are these guys in my rankings. What is their value? Who's close? So yeah, I see that. I don't. I mean, if you're not going to go QB in a Superflex league, and like, those guys are sitting there for you, and like, hey, I can pass on Mahomes and get Prescott or Murray in round 2, then yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense. So that probably does it. That maybe that reverses my prior comment, I guess. But I mean, I think it's just his floor is super safe, and it's really just super flex leagues, and I'm really caring about that. In 1 QB, it's more like, hey, I just chop these guys off the top, and then I kind of break it into guys that if they're there, in the early double digits, I'll take them. Otherwise, guys I'm taking super late, or the break glass, guys that I'm like, hey, I'll start my season with these few guys. So that's pretty much it, because you can always find quarterbacks on the wire in 1 QB leagues.
Yeah. I want to talk about some of those guys that are going to be available in like the mid to later rounds. Like you said, if we're going to have this whole enormous first tier of guys that we're just totally writing off because we're not going to be able to afford it, or we're taking skill position players instead, whatever. I want to know, like, where's that line of, like, in a super flex league specifically, like, okay, here's where if I don't take this player, I'm no longer comfortable with my QB1. And before I give you a chance to answer, I'll let you know that guy for me is Matthew Stafford. I moved him up in my rankings. I might have here where I had him originally. You know what? I bumped him up just one spot. I thought it'd be a little more dramatic than that. He was my QB 12, and I moved him all the way up to QB 11. You know what, man? He's sturdy. He's reliable. He's Matthew Stafford. He played 16 games in all but 2 seasons throughout 11 years in the league. At least 4,000 passing yards in all but 1 healthy season. 4,000 yards as recently as last year. I wouldn't exactly say that people are fading Matt Stafford right now, but it seems like it's been so long now. When did that Jared Goff trade even happen? Matt Stafford. We're thirsty for news now. This trade and Matthew Stafford in general, it just doesn't seem to be on anyone's radar. Meanwhile, I feel like the dude's a realistic candidate for, like, I mean, why couldn't he throw for 5,000 yards this year with the receiving upgrade he's going to get and his track record of consistently throwing for 4,000 yards? And hey, I don't know if you heard, but Sean McVay said this guy is a bad MFer.
Yeah, I agree with you on Stafford. I think people are getting just, I don't know if tired, whatever. Like they just kind of drift over him, right? Even with a new squad, that might give him a slight bump. He's right now in sleeper ADP, QB 14 as of last week.
Mhm.
That includes Deshaun Watson. So like you almost have to keep an eye on that because that's its own deal. And I don't even know if that's worth talking about today. But with Stafford, yeah, he's definitely there. I would say the line for me, and maybe I cheat here. There's nine quarterbacks I really like, but there's 15 that I'm okay with as my QB1. And that's really what you got to do, especially in super flex leagues. Like, where's the line? Where do I want to make sure that I have one of these guys? Now, the two names that I'm sure we'll talk about a crap ton as we get closer and closer to the draft season are Jalen Hurts and Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
These are guys that have rushing upside. Hurts maybe more than Jones, but these are guys that kind of give you that little extra edge. Like for me, after those guys, it's Stafford, Brady, Burrow. Those are guys that are just not going to run a ton. But I think are all safer than Hurts and Jones. Just might not have the upside. But for me, that line is called the Kirk Cousins line. Every year, I always feel like Kirk Cousins should be your baseline quarterback. If you have him as your QB1, you should be fine. You should have enough other pieces around him because you didn't have to pay the price, even in super flex leagues, to go get him. He's, he put up great numbers last year, supported 2 wide receiver ones, has solid weapon, has both those guys back this season as well. The defense struggled last year for the first time in a while. They made some adjustments. I expect them to be a little bit better, but not nearly what they were in the heyday of the Vikings. So I think Kirk Cousins is kind of like that cutoff guy for me right now. There's a few players that dropped below him that I had ahead of him, like pre-free agency, pre-draft, Matt Ryan, that like I just don't trust as much anymore as my QB1. So for me, there's 15 guys, and that's the caboose is Kirk Cousins.
Speaking, going back to, you were talking about Daniel Jones. I see he is QB 25 in Fantasy Pros ADP. I imagine it's somewhere close with Sleeper. But last time, and I don't know if it was last time we were talking about.
Holy crap, dude! That's McCorkle Jones, as Memphis calls him. So sorry, I freaked out for a minute. He's 20. Daniel Jones is QB 26 in Sleeper ADP right now. That's insanity. I feel like
that is insanity. You won't hear me argue that. And we were both totally in sync. Hey. Is
that in sync? I don't even know.
Yeah, that's definitely in sync. I had to channel my inner boy band. But anyways, we were totally in sync on Danny Dimes when we did our original rankings. Like, we were both surprised to see how high each other had him. At QB 11. Now, I have since weakened my stance on Daniel Jones, not for any specific reason, not because of anything I saw in minicamp that like scares me. I just think I was a little too I don't know. I had a little too much faith in Daniel Jones. You sticking hard with that QB 11? Like, you still feel good about that? Because I dropped him to QB 15, and that feels a lot more comfortable to me.
Yeah, I definitely don't feel like I look at those two guys, both Hurts and Jones, and I'm like,
you gotta look at who's behind him, and it's like, man, I don't know.
I just feel like, man, if I draft Tom Brady, like that's probably a safer pick. It is a safer pick.
Yeah.
And as I noted on Twitter earlier today, at Kyle Monte, really propping up the Twitter game here. Brady starts the season at home against Dallas and then at home against the Falcons. The dude might have 15 freaking touchdowns after 2 weeks. It's going to be freaking disgusting. But anyway, the thing with him, I just feel like, is he going to win my league for me? I don't really think so. Like, I think Jalen Hurts could, as far as like where you have to get him, where he could finish. I don't think he's going to be the QB1, but he could be a top 5 quarterback based off of just the rushing. Right. And it just, those are the guys that are really tough. Cause like, do I like Jalen Hurts or Daniel Jones from NFL perspective? Hell no. I think these guys are pretty much trash, but they run the ball a decent amount, and they should be good enough in Daniel Jones's story to, as far as to get enough in the passing game that 500-600 rushing yards, which could be in play with the extra game too. For Daniel Jones, that's a difference maker. That's more, that's 600, 500, 600 more yards again than Tom Brady's going to have on the ground. Yeah. He doesn't run. So I don't need me to tell you that. So, but if Daniel Jones is literally going to be taken outside the top 24, I'm probably going to end up with a lot of Daniel Jones, because he'll just be the guy that I'm just sitting there and he's just waiting for someone to take him. And that'll be me. I'm sure as heck going to take him over some of the guys that are going behind him: Baker Mayfield, Zach Wilson, Tua, I mean, what the hell are we doing here? Like, I'll take over Matt Ryan. Yeah, it just so. The good thing is, I guess, is that he will be available. I wasn't sure if he was going to be there. Like, Hurts is probably not going to be a guy that I get on many teams, even though I have him ranked high, because ADP is going to be. He's going right now in the 8th round. Sleeper ADP. I'm not taking Jalen Hurts, but I'll end up with Daniel Jones, and I'll be fine with that. And if he sucks early in the season, that's the great thing about quarterbacks. Just dump them and find somebody else. Just stream away.
A couple guys I think that will be readily available as streamers. A couple more guys that I like is like late round. I'm not trusting this in one quarterback leagues by any means, but here, are you totally upset if Ryan Fitzpatrick is your QB2 in a super flex league? I feel like it's going to be hard for him to not succeed with the playmakers he's going to have around him. I don't know. He's got a bit of a track record now. He seems, I feel like he's just never going to die. Fitzmagic's going to be forever. Somehow he's still starting in the league. Like, screw hanging around and like holding a clipboard. The dude's starting. But I'm hearing nothing but good things about Antonio Gibson this season. They got Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, man? If you waited and you've got, I don't know who could, if you got Stafford was your QB1 and then you fell back on Ryan Fitzpatrick as your second one, what do you think?
So the only hesitation I have with Fitzpatrick is this was a team that felt comfortable enough cutting bait with Strip Club Haskins, right? Which is fine. It wasn't their goal. It wasn't their guy. Prior regime brought him in. Those are red flags, right? Whenever you're looking at a guy and how the team's going to treat him. They still, I think this is a team that knows they can rely on their defense. They have sunk a ton of resources in that defense over the year. They got like freaking 17 first rounders on the D line or whatever the hell the actual number is. I think that the only thing I haven't heard too many people talking about is how long is the leash? Like, it's all good when your team sucks and you're not really looking to contend. Just let Fitzmagic go out there and, hit a spark once in a while. And that's great. But I think there's also the idea of like, can we just put Kyle Allen in here and just weather the storm? So
yeah, you're right. Because all of a sudden, this Washington team, like, they're kind of ready to win. Like, it feels weird to say it because a couple years ago they were just, like the loser in the biggest sense of the word. Yeah. They weren't winning any games, but they've got a beast of a defense. Mm-hmm. Playmakers all around and a solid game manager and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Yeah. What were they like? They finished like 500 or something like that.
They won a division last year. I forgot. Wow. It's wide open. So I think that if he gets a little too crazy and he's giving up games through turning the ball over, I think there's a possibility that they pull the leash on him. So as far as if he's my QB2, I'm fine with that. But that goes to pretty much my biggest super flex strategy is it pretty much boils down to this. Keep it simple. In a super flex league, if you go 2 quarterbacks early, I always want my third, but you can wait. If you're waiting on your quarterbacks, if you're like the last team to get your second, I want to be the first team to get my third, right? So Fitzpatrick for me is inside my top 24. I'm fine with him as my QB2. I haven't ranked it 23 overall amongst quarterbacks, but then I want one of those other guys that's 24 through 28. Like I don't want to be sitting there with like my third quarterback is Teddy Bridgewater, right? I'll take Tua or Goff or Derek Carr. Those are guys that I have ranked behind Fitzpatrick, and I want to pair him with somebody else just so that I can make sure that I have a safety blanket there. Fitzmagic is definitely like the line where I would mention like Kirk Cousins line where it's like, hey, these are the guys I'm counting as my QB2 or as my QB1. Sorry, is that you almost have to draw a line again, like, hey, where does the QB2 drop off happen? Where I'm prioritizing my third quarterback. And Fitzmagic he's under that line for me. And there's not very many guys that after Cousins that I'm not going too far down the list here, but like I have Winston, Fields, Fitzmagic, Carr, Goff. Like there's 5 guys right there that I don't feel overly confident that they can just carry my team as my QB2. I want 2 of those guys or, one from, or Tua or, taking a shot on Sam Darnold. Like I don't want to be stuck there like, oh, my QB2 is Ryan Fitzpatrick and my QB3 is Drew Lock. Like that sounds horrible, right? So in super flex leagues, I'm cool with him as my QB2, but I'm not just setting forgetting,
Do you have the sleeper ADP in front of you right now?
Yes.
where do they have Sam Darnold going right now? Because Fantasy Pros, and I hope it's wrong or just not corrected yet, QB 32?
Yeah, he's QB 30. Sam Darnold is QB 30 right now in Sleeper
man.
ADP. And this is redraft. They break it down, they make it available for us, so we appreciate that. But it looks like there's at this time of the year, there's a lot of dynasty influence, I think, in these leagues. I think once we get to August, we'll see that balance out. And when I say that, I mean balance out for some of the guys like Big Ben right now is only going one spot above Sam Darnold. I don't really know why that
dynasty should be all the more reason that ADP should be jacked up. He's like 23 years old.
I think I don't know that Darnold's going to move. I think he's going to stay right here. People have been burned by him too many times, which is always the reason people give for not wanting to draft players. He's on a new team with plenty of weapons, and their defense needs work. So I have him as my QB 20. I guess I move him up here. So he was 27, Sam Darnold. So he's like the poster child QB3 in a super flex league for me. Like I definitely want him. Like if I took, Winston or Fitzpatrick or Carr, give me Sam Darnold. Like I want to get that third quarterback. Again, if you're the last guy to get your QB2, I want to be the first guy to get my QB3 in super flex leagues, just so that I have a little bit of stability there. So yeah, he's definitely going to be a target in super flex leagues. And even in one QB leagues, like he's just a guy to keep an eye on. He's, I was pulling this up real quick to see where he's at. He plays the Jets. Dude, is this for real? He plays the Jets week 1.
Nuh-uh. No, it doesn't.
I'm looking at the schedule right now. It's got Dallas. I think this is accurate. That would be insanity.
Don't tell me it falls on like Adam Gase's birthday or something.
If he seriously gets the Jets at home in week 1, I mean, yeah, then Sam Darnold becomes an option in one QB leagues.
I'm telling you, man. I mean, I'm so shocked at, and I say how quickly people are to pull the cord on Sam Darnold. I know it's been like 3 years now, but the dude was immediately put into a position to fail at the age of 21. Like that doesn't happen. Guys don't just come into the league and I mean, I guess they do now, but guys just come into the league and start. But he came in and he had no weapons around him. He had a terrible coaching staff. He's had multiple offensive coordinators, if I'm not mistaken. But now he's moving into like the complete flip side, completely different scenario where he's going to have seemingly stable coaching, weapons all around him, DJ Moore, CMC in the backfield to check the ball down to, which I'm sure he'll take advantage of plenty. Robbie Anderson, he's got the existing rapport from already playing with him in New York. Terrace Marshall now. Look, man, all I'm saying is if Sam Darnold ends up going somewhere in his current ADP, QB 30 to QB 32, I'm going to end up owning him on every single one of my redraft rosters this season, just on upside alone.
So not to make this a Sam Darnold hour, I did double check, confirmed, plays the Jets week 1 at home in Carolina, which is crazy. This dude's schedule, the first 8 weeks, is off the freaking chain. Jets and Saints is a good defense, so that's the blip. But Jets at home, Saints at home, then at Houston, at Dallas, Philly at home, Minnesota at home, and then at the Giants week 7, followed by at Atlanta week 8.
Oh,
there's maybe 2 defenses on that I'm New Orleans and maybe the Giants. That's it. Like,
what's the playoff schedule?
The playoff schedule's rough. You don't want them for the playoffs. but if you're telling me even the first 4 weeks, I can play them against the Jets, the Texans, and the Cowboys.
Huge.
Oh, bro, like that alone, and that's actually one of the points I jotted down here for one QB leagues. Like in redraft, it matters. The schedule freaking matters. Like you should be looking. If there's a guy that has tough matchups the first couple weeks, you're going to sink him just a bit, in my opinion, because you need somebody to start with, right? I believe it was Roethlisberger gets Buffalo right out of the gate week 1. Like I don't love that matchup. You look at Stafford, he gets Chicago week 1. Are you confident in playing Matthew Stafford right out of the gate in week 1 against the Bears? If not, that should factor into how you're evaluating these guys. This isn't dynasty. This isn't long-term. This is, you have 6, maybe 14 weeks regular season to get it done. And if you're not confident starting Matthew Stafford, maybe it's just, I am the rest of the way. So I'll just pick somebody else up for week 1. Maybe I just pick up Sam Darnold. That's great. Or maybe it's okay. I'm going to lean a different direction here because I don't I don't like where he's sitting the first few weeks. Again, like we'll dig into this, but the schedule really, really, really matters. And yeah, looking at that, I'm probably going to own way too much freaking Sam Darnold now because that schedule is juicy. And that's pretty baller right there. So if you draft him as your QB3, he might be your QB2 for that first 2 months of the season. No joke. So, and he's got that late bye week. So that's
something we really can't emphasize enough on this redraft centric fantasy football show is matchups, and the fact that we're able to look ahead of time and see, like you said, you plan out those first 5 weeks. I remember doing that last year. Like Daniel Jones was a guy that I liked, but I remember the schedule started off something just horrific. Week 1, Pittsburgh, terrible matchups after that for the first few weeks. I knew that there was no chance that even at a value, I wanted Daniel Jones because I would go into every single Sunday with a pit in my stomach if I had to start him, and I wouldn't be able to throw him in my starting lineup and just think in the back of my head, like, oh, but I got him at a good value. Like, it doesn't matter at that point. You've got 17 weeks. It counts this year. At the end of the year, it's done. You don't get a redo. You don't get to trade in the offseason.
Yeah, I was right, and I was on the same page with you as Daniel Jones last year, and like, yeah, Pittsburgh, Chicago, San Fran, and the Rams. That was his 2020 start. The first month, you literally could not play Daniel Jones. So, like, especially when these guys aren't when these guys are streamers, you really need to look at that, because if you draft a guy to be a streaming quarterback to start the year, but you can't have confidence in those first couple of matchups, he should go undrafted. Leave him on the wire. Somebody else can draft him. They will get frustrated and drop him after those tough matchups. So it's very interesting for sure.
If you're lucky, you end up playing that guy who had week 1 with Daniel Jones playing the Steelers. Enjoy it. There was one more note that I wanted to make before we sign off here, and it was just I really didn't touch on any of the rookie quarterbacks, and there's a huge class of rookie quarterbacks and a bunch of guys that are going to be starting this year, and I feel like it happens every year. These guys are going to be picked later. ADP is going to slip a little bit, but someone's going to pop off. It's going to be we don't know who it is. I'm Trevor Lawrence can go out there and do his thing and be fine, but Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Fields, Matt Jones, apparently a quarterback with offseason, which we expected because he is such a good thrower of the football, which is a very, very important skill to have as a quarterback. But even Davis Mills and getting a look at this year in Houston if they don't shake out with Deshaun Watson. I was looking at players before the show. I don't know much about Davis Mills, but the best comparable player on Profiler is Landry Jones. So take that for what it's worth. If you want to take the shot on Davis Mills. But is there anyone here that you're really feeling good about? Like, I'll tell you right now, I love me some Trey Lance, man. I don't know what it is about him. People tell me about how he's a rookie coming in and he's a seasoned. He's not ready for the pros. I'm not buying it. I see the legs, I see the arm, and I see the offense he's in, and I want it. So I'll take Trey Lance shortly after Trevor Lawrence goes off the board. Those two are kind of close to me from a redraft perspective. Is there anyone I think besides Trevor Lawrence that stands out to you really like? Maybe anyone who you're totally staying away from a rookie perspective?
Yeah, I like Lawrence is a guy that I'm okay starting my season with out of the gate. If he's he's outside my top 15, he's behind that Cousins line, so I'll go ahead and roll him out there. If he's the guy I left my draft with, I like Lance long term, but I'm a little bit concerned about his path to getting snaps right, early in the season. So I just feel like that's a guy that's going to be hard to roster, for multiple weeks. Really, the only other rookie quarterback that I'm interested in this for redraft is Fields, because I think he's going to start potentially even as soon as week 2, if not week 1. Yeah, he's the only other guy from the rookie class for redraft that I'm going to target in 1 QB leagues, and Superflex. The story changes obviously, but Fields is the most interesting to me outside of Lawrence.
There's something that I love too about a player like Justin Fields who's going into the season with like a chip on his shoulder. You can kind of tell every picture you see the guy take, every photo, he's just like straight face. He looks like he means business. And I'm into that. Allen Robinson, It's time, man. To the moon. Let's see what you got, because looks like we finally got the one who can deliver the ball. That's all I got for quarterbacks here. Kyle, you want to get us out here?
Yeah, man. It was definitely a good discussion. I think this will be an interesting position. As I mean, apparently we broke down that Sam Darnold's going to be a top draft target for all of us, or should be. But yeah, man, this is a lot of fun. We're going to be back. You and I, Jake and I, will be back with Memphis and Jerry doing a mock draft later this week on the War Zone. So sometime. So just stay subscribed, tuned in, and we'll catch you on the War Zone this week, and we'll be right back here next Monday night. So check us out on YouTube. We'll talk to you guys later.